Welcome back to WD.
FM, the official Walt Disney Family Museum podcast. We're your hosts, Brie Bertolacini, Content and Research Manager.
And Chris Mullen, Marketing and Editorial Specialist at the Walt Disney Family Museum.
Welcome to our Mini Musings episode. It's award season, and we recently had the 97th Academy Awards. So today we will be highlighting Walt and the Oscars. So even decades after his passing, Walt Disney still retains the honor of being the individual with the most Academy Award nominations and the most wins.
Arguably, the highlight in the Walt Disney Family Museum awards lobby is Walt's collection of 26 Academy Awards, the largest public collection of Oscars outside of Hollywood. Now let's take a closer look at some of Walt's highlights at the Academy Awards.
So first, a bit of history about the Academy Awards themselves. I get really nerdy about this. I love digging deep into the Oscars history. And at the first Academy Awards, it was held on May 16th, 1929. It was a private dinner in the Blossom Room in the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel with an audience of around 270 people. And the event was held 3 months after the winners had already been announced. And so the presentation of the awards took only 15 minutes. Hopefully there was a dinner involved to warrant getting all dolled up. So at this award ceremony, one of Walt's early inspirations, Charlie Chaplin, was given a special award for acting, writing, and producing for the film The Circus. The film The Jazz Singer received a special award for being the pioneering talking picture that revolutionized movies. Walt would agree with that assessment, as The Jazz Singer served as a source of inspiration for the inclusion of synchronized sound in Steamboat Willie.
And at that very first Academy Awards ceremony, the iconic statuette debuted. Here's a bit of history about the design of the award. Shortly after the formation of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences in 1927, the topic was discussed on how best to honor outstanding movie-making achievements and encourage excellence in all facets of motion picture production. Cedric Gibbons, Chief Art Director at Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, or MGM, designed the statuette, officially named the Academy Award of Merit. The award is a stylized figure of a knight holding a crusader's sword, standing on a reel of film with 5 spokes, signifying the 5 original branches of the Academy, which were actors, directors, producers, technicians, and writers. There was no model used in the design process, according to the Academy. Cedric Gibbons has the second most Oscars all time at 11, only behind Walt himself at 26.
Quite a gap there. Now, it wouldn't be until the 5th Academy Awards ceremony in 1932 that Walt Disney would be honored. So by 1932, Mickey Mouse had starred in around 50 shorts and had become a global star. Walt had started his Silly Symphony series and had just begun to experiment with a 3-strip Technicolor process with the release of their 29th short in the series, Flowers and Trees. So on Friday, November 18th, 1932, at the Fiesta Room of the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles, Walt took home 2 special awards that night. So first, Walt received a special award for the creation of Mickey Mouse, and it was on his 4th anniversary of his debut in Steamboat Willie. This award established Mickey Mouse as one of the most important cartoon characters ever created, and was the first and the only time a cartoon character would be honored by the Academy. Now, on display in the museum, you could spot this particular award pretty easily amongst the rest because it is the shortest of the statuettes. And that's because the base is just a little bit thinner than the regular bases of the regular statuettes. So the size of the Oscar itself is the standard size. So according to the conservators at the museum, the Mickey Mouse Award was originally plated in matte light gold, which you could see in some photos when Walt had the award displayed in his office. It has this kind of like different sheen to it than the rest of his Academy Awards. And so in the early 1990s, the statue was sent to the Academy for their complimentary replating services and was returned replated in the current standard Academy Award 24 karat gold.
That night also introduced the short subject cartoon category and brought Walt his first competitive Academy Award for the Silly Symphony short, Flowers and Trees. The first short subject cartoon Academy Awards were not statuettes, but certificates. The certificate was upgraded to a plaque starting in 1936. The Academy didn't give out Oscar statuettes for short subjects, live action, and cartoons until 1943.
The 5th Academy Awards marked a new set of categories: short subject cartoon, comedy, and novelty. So for the category of short subject cartoon, there were only 3 nominees, and 2 of the 3 were for Walt Disney. Flowers and Trees was competing against another of Disney's shorts, Mickey's Orphans, and Warner Brothers' Merry Melodies short, It Got Me Again. I think it's fair to say that the advancement in animation and the quality of shorts being produced by the Walt Disney Studios at this time, it just really helped cartoons be acknowledged and respected in Hollywood and by the Academy.
Another fun fact, Walt may not have invented the nickname Oscar, but he can be credited with how the perception of the Oscar nickname changed to what it is today. Now, what does that mean? Well, at the 1934 ceremony, Walt received an Oscar for the animated short Three Little Pigs, which had gotten more than 80% of the Academy votes for the honor. It was the first award given that evening. Walt came up to the podium with his head covered in bandages because he had been injured in a polo match with Will Rogers, the Oscar MC for the night. Screenwriter Francis Marion recalled, quote, "Those who had never won the gold-plated honor referred to it disparagingly as the Oscar. But when Walt referred to the Oscar in his speech, that name took on a different meaning, now that we had heard it spoken with sincere appreciation," end quote.
So by 1938, Walt had successfully swept the category for Best Cartoon Short Subject since its inception and won his 6th consecutive Academy Award for The Old Mill. This was the first cartoon to use Disney's multiplane camera to add dimension to animation. Walt and his technicians were presented with a technical award that evening for the development of the multiplane camera. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Disney's first animated feature-length film, debuted December of 1937 to huge success. At the time, it was the highest-grossing film ever, but there wasn't a category to honor a full-length animated feature, and it was kept out of the discussion for Best Picture, or what it was known then, the Outstanding Production category. At the 10th Academy Awards honoring films in 1937, where The Old Mill and Multiplane Camera were honored, so was Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. While The Old Mill swept up a competitive Academy Award for Best Animated Short and a Technical Achievement Award, Snow White received only 1 nomination for its music and scoring.
The following year, at the 11th Academy Awards, Walt was front and center for the ceremony. First up, in the category of Best Short Subject Cartoon, of the 5 nominees, Walt had 4 of his shorts nominated: Brave Little Tailor, Good Scouts, Mother Goose Goes Hollywood, and taking home the win was Ferdinand the Bull. The Academy honored Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and Walt Disney with a special Academy Award consisting of 1 full-size and 7 miniature statuettes. The Academy honored Snow White as, quote, "a significant screen innovation which has charmed millions and pioneered a great new entertainment field," end quote. At the awards ceremony, Shirley Temple unveiled the statuette, exclaiming to Walt, quote, "Isn't it bright and shiny?" This would make the film historic in many ways for the Academy Awards. This is the only film to have been honored by the Academy in 2 successive years, and this is the final time an Oscar statuette has been customized. The year prior, famous actor and ventriloquist Edgar Bergen was presented with an honorary award, quote, "for his outstanding comedy creation, Charlie McCarthy," end quote. It was a wooden Oscar statuette with a movable mouth. Edgar Bergen would later have a role in Disney's Fun and Fancy Free in 1947 and on Walt's first television special, 1 Hour in Wonderland.
I really love the customization that they had 2 years going in a row, and I really wish that was still a tradition that we still had. But I love that it was just for these very early films and these early kind of pioneering filmmakers. So, according to his biography, Academy president and legendary film director Frank Capra was the one who came up with the idea of a special award with a full-size Oscar statuette with 7 smaller ones descending in a row. This award was front and center in Walt's office at the Burbank studio, and today it is a must-see in the awards lobby at the Walt Disney Family Museum.
And it's front and center in our awards lobby, so visit and check it out. On February 26, 1942, Walt walked away from the ceremony with 3 awards. The first for Lend a Paw for Best Short Subject Cartoon. The next was a special award for the production of Fantasia. The highlight of the evening was when Walt was presented with the Irving G. Thalberg Memorial Award, the youngest person to ever receive it. This award is not awarded every year, but to, quote, creative producers whose body of work reflect a consistently high quality of motion picture production, end quote. Most producers receive this award toward the end of their careers. At the time Walt received the Thalberg, his body of work consisted of short cartoons, Mickey Mouse and Silly Symphonies, and 3 features, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Pinocchio, and Fantasia. The rest was yet to come. Preceding the Academy giving Walt this honor, the Disney studio had been through a tough financial year. Walt's most recent animated films, Pinocchio and Fantasia, did not recoup their initial cost due to World War II blocking the films from being released to European markets. After the bombing of Pearl Harbor in 1941, the Army occupied the Walt Disney Studios lot to protect a nearby Lockheed plant, and an estimated 90% of all studio output during that time was redirected in support of the American war effort.
Producer David O. Selznick presented Walt with the award. Walt was so overcome with emotion that he openly wept. According to the trade newspaper Daily Variety, it reported, quote, Walt found it difficult to speak, end quote. So in his speech, Walt said, I'm well aware of the high ideals that this award symbolizes, and I sort of feel like I should rededicate myself to those ideals. I've been through a very trying year, the toughest year. I hope there's never another one like it. And coming after that year, I'd like to feel that it's more than an award for past conscientious efforts, honest mistakes. I like to feel that it is sort of a vote of confidence for the future. And I want to thank the members of the Academy, my friends, everybody. Thank you, end quote. So shortly after Walt received the award, Thalberg's widow disapproved of the rendering of her husband's bust on the trophy, and she commissioned a new sculpture. She had the new version of this award sent to Walt and all the previous winners. So the one we have on display is the replacement trophy.
Even in the 1940s, Walt was worried about the conservation of nature. He had husband and wife filmmaking team, Alfred and Elma Malott, go to one of the last remaining wildernesses in Alaska. The resulting film, Seal Island, didn't appeal to Disney's film distributor at the time, RKO, who felt audiences wouldn't sit still for a nature film. Walt asked a friend who ran Pasadena's Crown Theater to show Seal Island for 1 week in December 1948, qualifying the film for consideration of an Academy Award nomination. Seal Island was not only nominated, but won that year's Best Short Subject to Reel. The day after the ceremony, Walt took that Academy Award to his brother Roy O. Disney's office and said, quote, Here, Roy, take this over to RKO and bang him over the head with it, end quote. Confronted with the impressive Oscar, RKO distributed the film. 8 of Walt's 13 true life adventures documentary shorts and features won Academy Awards, while its sister travelogue series, People and Places, took home 3 Oscars throughout its run. That means 11 out of Walt's 26 official Oscars were for nature or travel films. So that might be pretty surprising to those listening.
There's been so many decades since Walt has won these awards, and what today he is recognized for are his animated films and the cartoons, and yet a bulk of the awards that he won were for nature documentaries, and how the work that Walt did with these nature documentaries and travel series kind of established nature documentaries as a whole genre.
Yeah, and the fact that Mickey Mouse received an Academy Award at the what we would consider to be very early on in Mickey's lifetime, but Mickey had a losing record in terms of the competitive categories that Mickey Mouse shorts were nominated for. So it kind of in the way that some people might think that some actors or actresses get kind of a lifetime achievement Oscar when they get nominated and win for a performance later in their career, but maybe they weren't honored at the beginning of their career. In a way, Mickey did the reverse of that, and he got his kind of lifetime achievement Oscar, 4 years after his debut, when he would not have that kind of success going forward. So really interesting connection there.
Yeah, just very, very interesting. I love that we're chatting about this. And so, Walt Disney achieved a milestone at the March 25th, 1954 award ceremony by becoming the first individual to win 4 Oscars in a single night. He won the Oscar in 4 award categories: Best Cartoon Short Subject, Best Documentary Short Subject, Best Documentary Feature, and Best 2 Reel Short Subject. So at the most recent award ceremony at the Oscars, filmmaker Sean Baker actually tied Walt's record when he took home 4 Academy Awards in one night. And Baker made history as the first filmmaker to win 4 Academy Awards in one night for the same film, as Walt won for 4 different films.
And if anybody listening is like, didn't Parasite do that? Yes, Bong Joon-ho accepted 4 Academy Awards for Parasite, but the best international feature film win actually goes to The Country, not to the filmmakers, which is an interesting little wrinkle. So yes, Bong Joon-ho accepted 4 Academy Awards, but his official tally for the night was 3. So congrats to both of them for an incredible historic achievement in their own right. We will not be talking about the content of those films on this podcast. That is for a different podcast. But yes, great achievements. But going back to that historic night that Walt won 4 Academy Awards, in the first speech of the evening, Walt shared, quote, "Well, I just want to say on behalf of my staff, and especially the naturalist photographers who have played such a great part in making the nature films, many thanks," end quote. After receiving his 4th Oscar that evening, Walt told the audience, quote, "Just got to say one more word. It's wonderful, but I think it's my year to retire," end quote. I would tell Walt that's more than one word, but it's quite the opposite of Adrian Brody's long speech this year. Walt had left that evening and didn't expect to take home any awards, even though he was nominated 6 times. But as the televised ceremony went, he left with an armful of Oscars. Walt's niece Patty recalled the aftermath, saying, quote, "When Tom Jones, a studio publicist, drove Walt home, Lily wouldn't let him in the house because she was so mad that he told her to stay home. She was furious because it had been a big night and she wasn't with him. So Tom had to drive Walt back to the studio, and Walt had to sleep in his apartment at the studio that night," end quote. So quite the story.
Well, so an interesting kind of companion to that story, I have a quote of Lillian recalling that night, and she doesn't mention being upset like Patty recalled. So these accounts do differ, but I thought it was important to include both. So Lillian and their youngest daughter, Sharon, were home that evening watching the televised ceremony, not expecting Walt to walk away with any awards. Lillian shared the story with journalist Pete Martin, saying, quote, "I used to go to them with him, but then I got where I wouldn't go with him because there was a lot of commotion. So I would stay home and look at it on television. Sharon was so excited. Her and I were sitting in our living room and he got 2 of them. And Sharon went in her bedroom and I called out, 'Sharon, he's getting another one.' She came running in. And then after that, I said, 'He's getting another one.'" End quote. So it seems like there was a lot of excitement at home.
Absolutely. I mean, how could you not be? Following this ceremony, Walt discovered he was able to purchase miniature Oscar statuettes that represented his many wins and decided to give them to Lillian to acknowledge the role she had played in his professional success. He acquired 20 18-karat gold charms, each engraved on the bottom with the name of the film for which he was awarded. It was arranged in a bracelet. According to their daughter and our co-founder, Diane, Lillian wore the bracelet often and with great pride.
Now, this object is one of my favorites in our galleries, and it is such a unique artifact. And actually, at the Academy Museum in Los Angeles, you can purchase a miniature Academy Award charm in their store that I, of course, bought and I'm wearing today. Uh, and I did think about getting 20 of them to turn them into a bracelet, but, one will do for now.
And after this historic night, Walt would take home 3 more Academy Awards in his lifetime. His final Oscar was awarded posthumously for Winnie the Pooh and the Blustery Day. Director Wolfgang Woolley Reitherman accepted the award on his behalf, saying in his speech, quote, "To us who have worked with Walt, this is a very special Oscar, and it's a memorable moment in all of the moments we've all shared with Walt. Thank you," end quote.
So as of today, Walt still holds the record for most nominations for an individual with 59 nominations, most competitive and non-competitive awards with 26 awards, and most competitive awards with 22 Oscars.
And something that's really striking when you put it into context, too, is that the Academy did not have a Best Animated Feature category until the 75th Academy Awards in 2002, more than 35 years after Walt's passing. There was just not enough competition during Walt's lifetime to have a category. If there was one, Walt could have added several more Oscars to an already legendary collection and put the individual record that much further out of reach.
Yeah, I really enjoy looking at how the Academy Awards have just changed over the years. And through the Oscars we have on display in our awards lobby, you can really see the evolution of how animation was honored. First, starting with just a certificate, then, one of those little plaques, and then a statuette that everyone receives today. So from the 5th Academy Award ceremony to the 37th ceremony, Walt received nominations every single year, all except 2 years, the 13th, like number 13, and the 36th ceremony. So it just is such a feat. and that I'm just not surprised no one has come close to beating his record. The only ones that have come close are studios. MGM is the closest, and they have 12 competitive Academy Awards. So still a ways to go.
Well, and with that fun fact, that brings us to the end of a soon-to-be critically acclaimed episode. Thank you for tuning into WDFM, the official Walt Disney Family Museum podcast.
Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on all social channels at WDF Museum for all the latest updates.
I'll keep my acceptance speech brief. Keep moving forward.
Bye.
Bye.